my mouth gets chompy. I should. All right.
Just so you're aware. I am gonna turn this down a little bit because it's a bit fucking loud. But now
Oh shit. Oh my god, I'm stuck in a loop.
you have the stream open
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
double talk.
That tripped me out a little bit.
Okay.
These are some. Where did you find all these? Like some of them are obvious, but there's some art pieces in this slideshow that I've not seen before that are very cool.
So I got the illustrated covers, some fan art, and then those Spanish language covers are whatchamacallit. Those are also
So,
just fan made.
like this one of them searching through the ruins.
Why the fuck does it keep going back and forth between?
Was that Kafka?
Keeps going to Casca and the ruins. It's not supposed to do that.
But yeah, like that one of them searching through the ruins. I haven't seen before, and that's like a really cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just-
there's not a lot of first law art out there, so it is like I think it's 12 images.
Most of it that exists is super high quality, though.
Oh yeah.
Like it's kind of it's interesting.
Well,
You know, when Baez was first introduced, I never expected him to be like the big bad puppet master. Like I
mhm.
thought he was just gonna be some jolly old fella. Like
funny little guy.
He's
no.
you're nice. Like sometimes stern, but he's like a grandpa that like is mostly carrot, like very little stick, or at least like that's how it seems. Let's see. So I guess kind of
Oh yeah, do you guys want to introduce yourselves for Devad?
For the VOD?
For
Yes.
Devad?
for the
Go
VOD.
ahead, Brandon.
I am Brandon. I am the one who has in I'll say encouraged in place of annoyed my friends into checking the series out. It took a while, but eventually I was successful, and I'm very happy about that.
What
I
is
have I've read through the whole series, including the standalone trilogy and Age of Madness twice. So I am a very big fan of this series.
what is your scoreboard on people converted to first law readers?
Uh,
Have you got anyone other
let's
than the two
see.
of us?
So I've got the two of you who have gotten through all three books. I believe we have another mutual friend who is on book 3 right
Ah,
now. As if that's what I recall reading in the and then I've got there's another friend of mine who finished book 1 a while ago, and he really enjoyed it, but it's taken him a while to pick up book 2 because he's just been busy with other stuff. But I
as
am
you do.
it's probably time to poke him a little bit more and be like, hey, read
Finish
that
that
book
book
too.
off. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm glad to have you, Brandon.
thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And do you mind if I use your actual name?
Yep. That's fine.
Okay. And would you like to introduce yourself, Dalen?
Yes. I am Dalen, or Donut.
Hell yeah! Welcome to the stream.
All right. Let's go.
and I am Wayne. Let's see. Oh, what am I? having a little stream funnies, but that's okay. We can get it fixed up. Um, yeah, so we have read the First Law trilogy. Is good. I like this book series.
It's very good.
Um,
Excellent.
oh, I would like to push back and say that most of the First Law art that exists is not beautiful. It's mostly from that comic series. That's only pretty nice to look at.
Oh, I guess that kind of counts. I feel like that's that counts as one art
You,
altogether.
you think the whole comic series counts as one art?
No, man.
Because
Now
even
that we say it like that,
even if
it does
each
sound a bit stupid, huh?
even if each volume counted as one art, I think it would be most of the First Law art.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is.
What's everyone's favorite character from the first trilogy?
Jeez.
Oh man.
That's a good question. You know, in the last book, I had decided towards the end. I was like, I think I like Colin West the most. And then he fucking got sick with the fucking sickness.
With the fucking Satan cancer.
Mhm.
And then I was like, you know what? Never mind.
He does
So
come a pretty long way, Colin West.
he's a
he
good
was one of the
one.
characters that I feel like he really got done dirty. I feel like both the West siblings got done dirty a little bit.
Mm-hmm. No, I feel that. You were saying,
Uh,
Brandon?
So in the original trilogy, I would say my favorite character is probably Jazal. Just the way he's written and his entire journey um is something I find really entertaining, uh kind of heartwarming at points, which it's like it's funny how in these fantasy books I will often end up like who's my favorite character. It's like, oh, it's this privileged son of nobility. But like, I don't know, it's a really good character journey. He starts out honestly hilarious. He is like he's a bit of a like Dennis Reynolds.
That is a
In
really spot-on comparison.
like it's like that comparison just now came to me. I don't think I've ever drawn that before, but like he believes himself to be the golden god and everyone else around him is essentially a tool to be used. But like he's not necessarily that smart or manipulative. He just kind of thinks he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the introduction scene with him, at the game of cards that he shows up to, wins blindly, and literally everyone at the table is like, "Hey, man, your buddy here doesn't have the money to lose. You goaded him into playing. You should probably not take it." And he throws like a pissy fit about it immediately.
Just well, he shouldn't. If he's so poor, he shouldn't even be playing.
Mm-hmm.
And like, and then when it's argued, it's like okay, well, he wants to fit in.
Yeah.
Like this is what everyone in the squad is doing. Like and he's the new guy, so it would make sense for him to be taking part of this. Like, well, he shouldn't have been so unlucky. just the just an absolute shit.
For my favorite character, I think it's gotta be Harding Grim, just because like he doesn't do a ton, of course. He's a majority silent character, but I don't know. His relationship with everybody still shines through whenever he's
Mhm.
not saying anything, and then the few times he does say things, it's always a banger.
Yeah, that was exactly my thought. Is that he's the strength of making a character who doesn't speak much is that when they do speak, those words they have so much more weight to them.
I love when Logan finally reconnects with the squad, and everyone is like, "Holy shit, the Bloody Nine's alive!" And they're crying and hugging and cheering and drinking, and he walks up to Grim, who's just over there like tending to his arrows, and he's like, "Yep." And Logan's like, "I missed you too, man." uh,
To jump ahead a bit, I think his final words
mhm,
are like actually just so strong because I think it was meant sincerely, but also in part as a joke, or at least that's how I read it. To tell Dogman, I've always enjoyed our talks.
mhm.
Um, because I mean, like even the characters in that situation can't help but crack a smile at that, because
Mm-hmm.
that's just for a man who speaks an average of 3 words a week. That's such a funny thing to say.
I bet if you tally up the number of words he says in the entire trilogy, it's probably under 20. No, well, he
I
probably
mean,
says more than that at the end.
he gets a couple monologues,
Mm-hmm.
or quote unquote monologues, which are like a sentence or two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but completely lost my train of thought there. Whoops.
That's okay. Um, let's see. I'm gonna have to work on the fucking Jizal system for that Dennis
Oh,
Schwartz comment.
the the fact that he speaks Union Common
Yes. Oh god, when
is
he just walks right up to West and everyone's like, "What the fuck?" Or
I,
is it
I
is it West?
I think the quote being from yeah, I believe it's West that they like first make contact with. But I believe the quote from Dogman's perspective is, "Why would a man who barely speaks at all need to know a second language?"
That's a good one.
It's
Oh.
something along those lines.
I in the potential future, if that Best Served Cold film adaptation comes out and does great, and the First Law trilogy gets to come out, I think the two scenes that I'm most excited to see adapted are Baez just exploding that guy butt ass naked. It's super pissed off because his bath has been interrupted, and what's his name? What's the duel that Giselle has at the end of the first book? Um,
With Brent.
with Brent, thank
No,
you.
not
Or
Brent. Sorry, Gorst. Brent
Gorst.
is another character entirely.
Is it Bremer
Yeah, Gorst. Bremerden
Bremerden
Gorst.
Gorst. Um, I'm very excited to see them display like I'm just assuming that the choreography for this hypothetical thing that may never exist is gonna be good. And in that lovely, lovely potential future, I'm just excited to see a guy with colossal mass just fencing in air quotes.
I would, if there's ever any adaptation that makes its way through, um, there's a potential that the Best Served Cold movie might happen, but that's still kind of last we've heard from Joe Abercrombie on that was don't hold your breath. So there's a good chance. There's always a chance for that to just fall by the
Mhm.
wayside. Uh,
But Lord, I'm hopeful.
but I would really like to see, be it an adaptation of the first book, or certain scenes that exist in future books. Uh, Gorst fighting. So I'm not always the biggest fan of the action scenes, and that goes for, I mean, most fantasy books in general.
Hmm.
It's that's the one of the parts I have the hardest time envisioning. And so I'll kind of like mentally check out a little bit
Hmm.
until I like get to the end of it. But I've really always enjoyed the scenes of Gorst fighting, just because he's described as almost a guts like man,
Hmm.
from Berserk. Just like, it's typical fencing style in Adua is to have a long steel and a short steel. And he just comes in with this giant blunted greatsword, essentially,
Hmm.
and is just swinging this thing around like it's nothing, cracking ribs, taking down everyone. And people are like, he fights so dirty, and it's like, is it dirty or is it just more than you can handle?
Hmm.
Um, so the closest thing that I can think that we've seen to it, in like a recent media, like movie or TV adaptation, would be the way that the Mountain fights in the Game of Thrones series, which I don't know if either of you have seen. I believe, Wayne, you haven't, but
I have not. I can
you
imagine.
can maybe take some clues from his name, the Mountain.
Hmm.
He's a pretty big guy.
Let's see. Uh, I was talking to you about it last night, Brandon. But I also, this is a topic shift. But I really appreciate how. Oh, actually, just to circle back to the action scenes. Um, Similarly, I don't really like the action scenes in like most any books I've read. In general, they just don't do a ton for me. But I will say that the duel in the circle, absolutely loved it. Both the
So,
fight in the circle and the Northmen, or the, the quote, the Northmen going to kill the other Northmen in the background, I think are some of the most engaging, like, sentence to sentence tension I've seen in a book.
a good one-on-one duel is like always the exception,
Hmm.
to my rule of not really enjoying action scenes. Um, just like in the first law, it's, it's usually just a very intense sword fight, but in other series there will be much more like magical elements. But when it's, like I said, it's when it's a one-on-one duel, I have an easier time envisioning it, uh, making a picture of it in my mind, than when it's an entire battlefield situation.
Hmm.
Um, Dalen, did you have were there any scenes that stuck out to you that you would be really excited to see adapted into like a film or TV series format?
Um, I can't remember if this was in the second book or the last book, but when Ladislaus, definitely in the second book then.
Yeah, it was in the
Yeah.
second book.
Ladislaus,
I was gonna say I have a runner-up, and I think I know where you're going.
when Ladislaus' battle was the very first one where he sends the cavalry cavalry over the hill, and then they like don't come back, and then when Bethod's men come back over the hill, and then it slowly becomes foggy with that like freak fog
Mm-hmm.
that he has employed. What's that witch's name?
Um.
I think that
Oh man, I am completely blanking on that.
just that like confusion
Calder.
and
Is that right?
and
Alright.
panic. Oh, I don't know actually. The woman,
Cowrib is the witch.
Coward.
Coward. Yes. Um,
Cowrib is very cool.
panic and confusion, and when Column thinks he's about to die, but he's saved by the girl with the hammer. I think that scene is so like desperate and just full of panic. I feel like it would be an interesting one to watch.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great answer, and that's actually not where I thought you were going with that. I was thinking the scene where we meet Furious, so to speak, the cha-
Okay.
where Ladislaw gets what's coming to him, which is to say, for anyone listening who has not read but doesn't care for care about spoilers or anything, there's a very satisfying scene where this shithead privileged prince um, gets caught slightly before he gets caught in the act. It's before he actually manages to do any sort of
Assault on a woman.
full, yeah, full act, but he's
He's
forcing
going for
himself
it.
upon a woman. He's going for it, and he gets caught by West, who is meant to be his bodyguard, but West is enraged seeing the prince act like this and kind of loses his temper. And before he realizes what he's doing, he shoves the prince, Ladislaw, off a very high cliff to his death.
That was awesome.
The part about that scene that I think I appreciate the most is it. I think it's in the narration. I don't think it's in West's like internal monologue. But they make very clear it's like he was enraged. Uh, he he acted before he knew what he was doing, but it was not like something else got a hold of him. Like he did what he did intentionally.
Hmm.
Um,
It
and I
wasn't quite the way they describe Logan's
Yeah,
rage.
it wasn't a sudden freak out. It was a oh my fucking god, I'm gonna kill this guy.
Right.
um, but yeah,
You know,
I think that scene just to circle back a little with the when the fog rolls in and everything that will be a phenomenal thing to see adapted if they can hit like the scale and the the like terror of that scene.
yeah, that scene stuck out to me a lot. Like it's the first time they've seen the fog, and it it was just very very desperate.
Hmm.
Think- Wayne, did you say who your favorite was? I might have just
Oh,
completely.
bu- 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 uh, Hard and Grim.
Party.
Sorry, not
That
Hard.
is right.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah,
talked about Graham. Yeah.
yeah. Yep, yep.
Um, that's right. I think one character that we have not mentioned yet, which is a bit crazy to go actually 25 minutes talking about the first law without talking about Sand Glocta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, that's a hell of a character right there.
He's got to be like, if you were to aggregate, I feel like he would have to come out as the fan favorite, like across all
He's
readers. He's
Yeah, he is definitely if you find discussions online on Reddit and other boards, people love Glokta, and for good reason.
Mhm.
He is he's a fucking monster. Like, he is terrible, but you spend enough time in his head that you almost you see the way he justifies things, and you can like almost go with it. You can you there are if I there's multiple situations across these books where I try to envision myself in the shoes of certain characters, and the the disappointing truth is that there's a lot of times where I can't say I wouldn't do the same.
Mhm. I think a big part
They
of. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say these characters. One thing that I think is often we talk about, a lot, or one of the main points that's talked about is how morally gray all of these characters are and how no one's really a good person. But I think part of what actually makes this world so grimdark is that it's the situations they're put in, like finding an actual good, morally acceptable outcome that won't just result in more death anyways, is practically impossible.
Mhm. I think a big part of why, at least why I enjoy Glokta's perspectives on things, why I can maybe not relate to him, but I can see like his thought processes, and it's not immediately the most horrific shit. Is he doesn't, even whenever he is doing horrid shit, he recognizes that the shit he's doing is horrid. um, he is not a character who always does what he thinks is right necessarily. He's just doing what he thinks is necessary.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that goes a long way. I think a lot of people, or a lot of characters in fiction are always trying to do the right thing, or are being like evil under the guise that what they're doing is the right thing. Um, and Glokta, I mean, well, like one of his catchphrases is "Why do I do this?"
Exactly.
Like as it comes up, it's a phenomenal. Also, just big shout out to Stephen Pacey who narrated the audiobooks. Absolutely phenomenal work.
Yeah,
Um,
he does.
does an amazing job portraying each of the characters like uniquely. Um,
He gives each of the characters a voice, like a literal literally he does a voice for like each major character that is distinct, um and just he does a great job. He's a professional theater actor, and he really shows his chops off on this audiobook narration.
Tank is trying to bury Peanut's food again.
Yeah.
um, yeah, Stephen Pacey, phenomenal, phenomenal. But yeah, I think the phrase "Why do I do this?" is probably the most used like chapter ender or book ender, because I think it is the last sentence said in the Blade itself, maybe. Um,
It might be. He's
but every
I
every
don't
sorry.
I don't remember if his first chapter opens with "Why do I do this?" or if that's click tap pain.
I think Click Tap Pain is the first is
Okay.
the first Glokta bit. Um, which is also like god, I really love like everything about these books.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you brought up why do I do this? Because there's a lot to be talked about with that. I think one of there's multiple meanings to that.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the meanings that I think I I find is strongest that he's like asking himself is the why do I keep acting in a this self-preserving way? Because he tells himself over and over, like I mean, he is disgusted with himself. He's
Mhm.
disgusted, and he tells himself over and over throughout the series that he wants to die, that he is not afraid of death. He welcomes it. He deserves it. Yet, for some reason, he never actually stands up to Salt or whoever is staring staring him down. He never stands up to them and embraces death. He always acts in a self-preserving way, and I think that is one of the main things that he keeps asking himself, why do I do this?
Mhm.
There's a really notable interaction in the last book between Baez and Glokta. Like when Baez is revealing that he's the man behind the curtain and has been this whole time.
Mhm.
Baez asks Glokta, like he's like you're so, I forget the exact verbiage, but he says that even though Glokta lives a miserable life, like he still like clings on, like he doesn't want to die. And Glokta responds that he's ready to die and has been ready to die, but he doesn't lose.
Mhm.
And I thought that was fucking
That
sick.
is that is true. He does. That is a point that is worth bringing up, that he refuses to be beaten.
Mhm.
Um, but I've one of the points of Glokta that I've always found interesting is the unreliable narration aspect, um, where he is constantly acting in a way that is inverse to what he tells himself. I think if you asked him his opinions on matters, completely bereft of his actions, just like what do you think is the right answer here on paper, I think he would look like a really great guy.
Mhm.
Um, but he is, but like in practice, he is a torturer who forces confessions out of innocent people. He will like he I'm trying to I don't know exactly what the Twitch rules are on like sensitive. I guess there was already a disclaimer
Yeah,
about
there's
adult
disclaimers
content.
on here, and we have 0 actual viewers. Fuck it, say as you please.
Okay, yeah. Um, the Therese situation
Mhm.
is
Nightmarish.
so horrific, and one thing that I think a lot of people kind of glance over, and I feel like maybe if there's one shortcoming is that Abercrombie did not put enough weight on what Glokta was doing, because by forcing Therese to do her, quote unquote duties as the queen's husband, like by coercion of like I am going to kill your lover. I don't have a problem with you having this lover, but until you get pregnant with the king's baby, you cannot see her, and if you don't do your quote unquote duties, she will be killed. And so forcing this woman who does not feel any attraction to Jazal or men in general, but forcing this woman to have sex through coercion is essentially like it's rape in the second person.
Mm-hmm.
And he himself brushes this under the rug as like, well, this is what the kingdom needs. This is what my master has told me to do, so it's what I'm doing, so it's not really on me. And it's his willingness to do actions like that make it so relieving when he has those moments of offering, for instance, offering Artie his hand in marriage to avoid having to kill her. Because I mean, you go into this chapter fully believing like, oh no, he is absolutely going to murder this poor woman who is a friend of his to get rid of an inconvenient bastard. And it's the fact that he's very willing to do that makes it such a relief when he actually finds a better way out.
I also, just to cut in, the direction of that scene is so fantastic. Like up until the point where he pulls the metal thing in his hand out and it's not a knife.
And not a knife.
Yeah. It's like, oh my god.
The direction / misdirection.
the misdirection of that scene.
Yeah. No, very well written.
And also, just to say, like, this is an incredibly minor spoiler for the Therese situation. But whenever Glokta explains you are bought and paid for, it comes up in a later book that, like, that is a literal thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
And you know, obviously this is a grim dark fantasy book, but this is also a thing that was like, nah, this is how daughters worked in the olden times.
Mm-hmm.
Even still in modern times in some scenarios, but no, this beautiful woman was a political gift from a country seeking aid. Or not necessarily seeking aid, but seeking allies, unionship. It's actually, yeah, no, that it is actually Grand Duke Orso that comes to the aid of the Union at the end of book 3.
I think I might say that the Therese situation at the end of Last Argument of Kings, where Glokta like forces her to bear children for Jazal, I kind of think that's less about Glokta's character as a person and more on how fucked up like women are treated in this both old times and
that is true. There is, if it were a book set in a like more modern progressive society, there is a chance that Glokta might have further reservations about actually doing that. Because yeah, this is, like we were talking, this was a time where a royal daughter is essentially treated as cattle.
I think Baez says at one point that Jazal's queen must must secure political that word, like political allies, and bear him children.
Yeah, like must produce an heir.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just an unfortunate reflection
Yeah.
of reality
And
instead of Glocta's character.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know Glocta is like fucked up and will do fucked up things, but like I don't know, just
Which
I don't know. It's just fucked. It's really fucked up.
It's really fucked
Uh,
up.
another reflection on the way women are treated at that time um, is that there is a nuance in the terminology where Therese must produce an heir. That does not mean she must produce a child. She must produce a son.
Yeah.
So that
Mhm.
means she needs to have as many babies as it takes until there is a boy. Um, Oftentimes, these contracts will include you actually need to have two sons because it is not uncommon for something to happen to one of them.
Mhm.
Yep. And Glocta tells her in that scene, she needs 2 sons and 2 daughters, and she's like, "But that'll take years." And he's like, "Well, if you
Yup.
start now and get to it, it's so
Mhm.
it's
It's
it's bad.
awful. It's awful.
Bad.
It's horrific.
I think that would be. I think that would also be a good scene to see, um, put in a film.
Like adapted,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, just it's so like heart wrenching, especially when Giselle is like cluelessly describing how she has been like inconsolable every single night. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Is it
It's
Glocta he's talking to when he explains
Yes,
like, yeah, we like no, it's been okay, but like every night she goes and sits by the window and is like
and
about to
cries
cry.
for
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah, just like it's something's wrong, dude.
I feel legitimately bad for Giselle in that situation. Because he is also being very heavily coerced um, by Baez, Glocta, many other forces, but mostly those two, which Glocta is just an extension of Baez at this point. Um, but I
I just gotta say, I can't believe if you had told me that by the end of the book series I would be feeling bad
for Giselle,
for the
he
tool we
has
met in like
such a
chapter
growth.
3. Yeah, like he really does change as a character like
Like
hugely.
there's I don't remember like what it's from. Like, but there's kind of just like a saying that goes like you speak like some or you talk like someone who's never been punched in the mouth.
Mhm.
Um, Giselle takes a mace to the mouth, and like it it really does give him quite the attitude adjustment. And it's funny that you'd think it would be something that simple, but a big part of his ego is attached to his physical looks. And so when he realizes that he's gonna have like a big ass ugly scar that really ends up not even being that bad, but he's like, oh no, I'm gonna look like an ugly fucking monster like Logan.
Mhm.
Like, is actually the moment that teaches him to like, oh wait, Logan's a human.
Yeah.
I
This
think
guy is like kind of cool.
I think part of that development was because when he was recovering, like it kind of clicked for him, like that the only way he survived was from Logan feeding him with a
Mhm.
spoon and from Pharaoh stitching up his wounds. And I think he realizes then, like, oh shit, I kind of need these people that I think are disgusting and I don't like.
Receiving receiving kindness from people he deserved absolutely nothing from,
Hmm.
um, I think was definitely good for kind of helping him. But to use a Bible quote, is to heap burning coals of kindness upon their heads. Uh, to just like make a person go like, oh shit, man, like I'm being a dick, aren't I?
I also think that
um,
that that sequence in particular, because I think Logan says it later. I think it's during like the siege of the high places, where they're barricaded in, and I think it's Shivers, um, is like rightfully super pissed at Logan, um, and Logan continues to just make kind gestures, and I think the thing he says or the thing he thinks to himself is, um, like kindness and time are the only things that can change someone to your friend or something like that, and you see him do that like throughout the entire story with Giselle in particular, of
yeah,
just like this guy he can see that this dude's never been punched in the mouth, and
absolutely,
he's not about to punch him in the mouth, but he'll be there for him when he gets it.
yeah. I think he might. I don't think he was completely closed off to the idea of being the one to punch him in the mouth.
Certainly. I'm sure during a few of those conversations he could have been persuaded.
What I think if I was in Logan's shoes, I would probably be like, I don't need to because any minute now, Pharaoh's gonna.
Hmm. We have said precious little about Pharaoh for this like 50 minutes.
Fucking Binks.
Fucking pinks. Um, she's cool. I like her.
Pharaoh's a good one. Um, her role in the story is very interesting, but honestly, she's one of the POVs that I find a little more disappointing as we don't see like there is I'm not gonna say there's not growth with Pharaoh, um, but for the most part, she just kind of stays angry and pissed off throughout.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end, that becomes like incredibly rightfully so. I think I just looked at the screen. We splashed away from the Spanish cover of Last Argument of Kings, which is there's a bit of a spoiler in that cover, but you wouldn't guess what's happening if you hadn't read yet. That is Pharaoh Malgene being used as a tool to break the first law, the namesake of the series, which is I guess we haven't even talked about what the first law is.
Oh yeah, we should
Uh,
probably. Yeah.
which is to not it is forbidden to touch the other side. Um, or so to speak, it is to reach across realms into hell. Um, towards the end of the series, there's a big break. I call it a breakage of the first law. Baez argues that he did not reach across and touch hell because he brought hell to their realm for a brief moment, which I gotta say I think you're full of shit on that one, old man.
I I believe that's only a short while before he finally drops the mask entirely and says, "Fuck that. There is only
Yeah,
one law. Fuck the second law. the first
Yeah,
law is might makes right, bitch.
essentially, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just
Because
like,
the second law is that it is forbidden to eat the flesh of man, which is a way to gain access to pretty crazy magical powers. Um,
do
and so you
we? This doesn't seem the type of story to really like delve into the weeds of it, but do we ever learn more about like, because every eater that we see is like a completely different thing almost. Like, is there like any expansion on that, or is it really just nah, they ate someone, they have something going on now?
there is not a whole lot of expansion on the lore of like what magic is and like what kind of went on between Juvens and Canadius beyond what's in the first three books.
Okay.
I to get into like not really content, but I guess thematic spoiler territory for kind of future books. Um, it's discussed that the magic is leaving the world. It is getting like less and less, which is part of why the first law is such a low magic series. Other than the key moments of Baez just deleting a dude, or an entire section of a city, um, or also, hey guys, do you remember the in like the very first part of the blade itself where Logan sucks up the flame spirit and then like shoots it out of his mouth later?
Mm-hmm.
He never does anything like that again. that's one that like that's most people catch that on reread and are like, hey, what the fuck? But as these books go on, um through the through the nine full-length novels and the collection of short stories, there is less and less magic. Other than there are eaters, but there's less and less magic as it's kind of escaped the world. Um, and then there is right at the end of the last book of Age of Madness, there is something to suggest that it might be coming back, uh, which Joe Abercrombie has said, yes, in the future of the first law, we are going to be dealing with the return of magic to this world, which I'm very excited for. And I think that's part of what the Devils is. I think he's prepping himself for more.
More of a magically
He
influenced setting.
Yeah, he normally creates very grounded military and political fiction, and I think he's trying to touch some of that gothic horror, a little bit of eldritch stuff. Because I gotta say, I am actually very curious to know more about the lore of Juvens and Canadius.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we just might not really get that because uh, Joe Abercrombie is not the biggest like world building writer so much as he is a character writer. I think he builds amazing characters, and I'm not going to knock the world of the First Law, but I think there is a little bit of a he's almost making a statement on what to expect when he's like, this is the North. It has Northmen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Here is Angland, and it's like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. We're just kind of mirroring Europe. I feel like I just talked for a really long time. Does anyone have anything to?
um, I mean, as far as that particular branch, not really, but but I can say that I feel. I'm just gonna just spit out whatever comes to mind because we have time to fill. Um, I really, 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 really love the character moment in the Blade itself, which I think you're the one who, of course, you're the one who brought it up to me first. You're the first person I knew who likes the First Law. Um, when Logan falls off the cliff and has to, be realistic about the fact that all of his men are probably dead by the Shanker, by the Flatheads,
The Shenka.
the Shanka. Sorry, that Stephen Pacey British
That
dialect.
British.
I thought her name was Audie forever and glocked her. Um, but when he flies off the cliff and is like, "Well, I survived narrowly. All of my men are certainly dead. Gotta move on. Like I'm still alive. I'm still alive." And then later he has to. He's trying to figure out like, okay, I've got too much stuff. I'm not gonna survive if I don't leave something behind. And he has that cook pot. He has that like probably 10-pound cast iron cook pot that he has to leave behind, and he has like a paragraph of monologue about how much he loves that cook pot and how well it's served him and how sad he is to let it go. And I think that's just really, really good character writing. I think it tells you a lot about him as a person in that, like, no, he's not being distant about his friends. He's being pragmatic because he has to be.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh, I also just want to say that Stephen Pacey gave me my favorite single line read in the entire series, which is one of the first things in book 2 whenever Glokta and his practicals are getting back to Adjua and they hop off the boat and you hear Frost say, "Oh my god," because he has no tongue. I think I legitimately went like, "Oh, he's happy to be home." Um, love Frost. Frost is the best.
Frost is great.
Frost is awesome.
I'm going to have to BRB just one moment. My bladder is bursting.
Haha, pisser, pisser. Yeah, maybe we take a quick like 5. If that sounds good to you.
I'm fine with that.
Cool. Let me set up a little hoo-ha. Little 5-minute
Little
timer.
bazoinga?
Little bazoinga.
Little blink a break.
A little brink a break. And we'll be right back. Alright, and we are back.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hello,
Hello.
we are back.
We are so back.
You know, one thing I wanted to bring up is from Icky Fail, and
Yes.
just how like, oh my gosh, it, do you think his madness is like, man, I don't know. He's just so good. Like he's like, you think he's like crazy, but like he's like actually pretty quick.
He
Especially his last interaction with Logan.
You're a bit too beloved of the moon.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think as far as Chromacaphael's madness is he's just like an unsocialized dude that lives out in the wilderness with like a very small tribe that follows like a really old archaic religion. And that's where his attitude comes from. Like he comes from a like violence is very encouraged in his home. So
I absolutely love everything about the Hillman. Crummock and his, how many kids does he have again? He has like
he's got
a lot.
a bunch of them.
Like 12 or something.
He has. The wiki says he has many wives and so many sons and daughters.
I adored from the moment he showed up to the end of that whole thing. I think every single one of them was a delight. I love when he's pretending not to remember his daughter. He's just like, I don't remember your name, Isern. I sometimes forget, but whenever she gets pissed off and like smacks him in the foot with a hammer and immediately starts bartering with her brothers about which weapon she wants instead, it's great. I love it.
I love when he, in a moment when he kind of breaks off from the rest of the group and he confides in Logan. He's like, now I try my best to make sure she never hears this, but she's my favorite. Yeah, Chromacaphael is great. Isern is also just a fantastic, like, they're very good, like, they're not entirely comic relief characters, but they provide a lot of much needed comic relief during that part of the story. And I think that's another thing that Joe Abercrombie does pretty well, is that I feel like his books never get quite so heavy that I like need to set them down, so to speak. Because he always keeps a few characters around to create some levity of the horrors. Be it Brother Longfoot, Nikimo Koska,
I love
Severard and Frost are other great examples of that.
One thing I want to say about Giselle is I am really disappointed on how he handled his breakup with Artie. He's just so fucking clueless, and like just how he had the audacity to basically ask her to be his whore is just, come on, man. And then you're gonna get fucking, you're gonna be confused when she's mad about it. Yeah. He's such a fucking dumbass. Like
he is a fool and a prick. speaking of another fool, I also and like especially seeing because we were talking before the books have been completed about yours and our one of our mutual friends' predictions about the book. Seeing you call like I think before you even started the third book, before you started Last Argument of Kings, just I really want Giselle or not sorry not Giselle, I really want Glokta and Artie to get together. Um, and it's like, oh yeah, I was just not paying enough attention to their interactions on first read. Like they absolutely are really good friends and are good for each other.
Yeah. She had said in the last book that she had always admired him.
Mm.
Like, I don't know. I think that they really complement each other.
One thing that I feel is easy to forget in the face of like how much Artie ends up eating shit, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like she gets it real fucking bad.
Mm.
So much that it's like kind of easy to forget. Like, don't get it twisted. Artie fucking sucks. Like, she's not a nice person at all. She's very manipulative. She is wrathful. Um, like
Can you honestly blame her though?
she's a good fit for Glokta. Is what I mean there.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And no,
and there's
certainly can't blame her for.
no.
I think she's another one that, like, with in the same vein as Therese, like highlights how just poorly women are treated.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I am happy that in the end she's able to continue to live and find some kind of purpose in caring for Glokta.
Artie is a favorite of mine, and um, you'll get to see a lot more of her in future books.
Oh, really?
Yes,
That's good to
like
hear.
not a ton, but
But
like,
more of her. She appears again.
but yeah, and she's great.
That's very good. I yeah, I was kind of blindsided by the proposal and everything that came after. But like I find like her caring for Glokta. I forget what it. I think he like pulls a muscle or something and falls over and is like covered in his own shit and is just having like a really bad moment. Um, and she comes to help him, and he is the whole time he's just like I don't want you to have to do this. I don't deserve this, and it's a very sweet moment between the two of them.
Yeah.
Whenever she's just like I want to do this.
Um, there's
I think that
there's
speaks to her
there's
character as
one
well.
there's one
Sorry.
quote that is said in a there's one quote it's said in a very different context, but I think it really sticks out to her character is I've decided I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do it all the way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's very defining of who she is. And I think that also speaks to her attitude when the situation with Giselle happens. Because I am absolutely the request for is like, well, hey, you could be my mistress is like, while it is
Dude.
kind of while it is in a sense the quote-unquote best Giselle could offer, it is still very much an insult. So, but I've seen a lot of discussion online where people are like, she should have been more understanding and been less angry. And I think there's part of her anger is, you know, the absolute justification of like, what the, do you realize what you are asking of me? Um, but again, it's part of her character of like, this was not her fucking plan, and that is like, that's part of where her just rage comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the part that is not necessarily the thought out anger, but the primal, just like, I want to scream and yell, is like where that comes from. She's very much a planner. Very like full committer, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I like how they were able to, back to Giselle for a moment. They were able to make me go from, oh, this fucking piece of shit, to, oh, he's learning humility and he's starting to do the right things. And when things happen to him, sometimes you even start to feel a little bad for him, straight into like whenever he gets the crown thrust upon him and all of Baez's manipulation is coming to light. And he's like, I was getting ready to, like, I wanted to marry my girlfriend. Um, and then he immediately fucks it up even worse and is like, well, she could be my mistress.
Mhm.
Like, you're able to make me start to feel for a character and immediately just like, oh no, he's still absolutely that stupid douchebag.
It's, well, he's a very believable character because he's very human. He has these moments where it's like in his first time in the council, when everyone is talking over him and treating him as like, wait, like, why is the king talking? Just shut up and be a good puppet. And he like,
Throws like a
he
fit.
gets mad. He throws the goblet. I don't remember who he hits, but he like hits someone in the forehead and like causes them to bleed. And he like throws a huge fit. And he's like, I am the fucking king, and I will not be ignored. Um, and Baez, you know, at the first time this happens, it's like, hey man, good for you. They needed that. And so it's this like moment of like, hell yeah, no, like, let's go King Giselle. Like, this is gonna be based as shit. Um, and then just like, you start to like, it's one of those, it leads further into feeling bad for Giselle when it's like, it creates this hope of like, Giselle is gonna be the king that changes things. Like, he's actually gonna help the kingdom. And then once he starts to do that, everyone swoops in and is like, okay, so like, you had your fun, but don't get ahead of yourself. And he discovers that he's not actually in charge here.
uh, this
What
is.
how do you what how do you two feel about Pharaoh and Nine Fingers relationship? I think it really like I think it shows that Pharaoh's desire for vengeance and to just hurt Gurkish is stronger than her desire for
Like
love, I
affection.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
I think I I kind of think that their little relationship they had going on was just out of human need and not her
Mm,
desire to be close.
I think I think they both display, like, on some level a desire to, and also a great resistance to being vulnerable with one another. Um, like specifically in, do you want to fuck? What?
Yeah.
And it's just an immediate like I'm just gonna throw this out there, and if the answer's no, you can sleep on the other side of this ruin, and we'll never talk about it again. um, and I don't know. Like they're both very like self-empowered characters who are very. I don't really know how to structure my thoughts on this. Um, the way their relationship went felt almost like inevitable for who they both were. I think.
Yeah.
I I feel like there could have been a reality in which, had Pharaoh not been used by Baez in the way she had, and which like threw her into this like crazy mental spiral. Um, I feel like there is a reality in which she might have actually tried like sticking with Logan, and perhaps some chaos could have been avoided.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think it's she is very scarred by pretty much all of her interactions with any people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very natural for her to run from the good thing as a like method of self-protection.
Like a defense mechanism, yeah.
Yeah, it's get away from it before it has the chance to hurt you. Which honestly, considering Logan, might have been the right call.
Mm-hmm. Something I really appreciated, whenever Logan is talking to Bethod about the duel, and he's like, he tries to paint Bethod in this in the light that you, the viewer, or you, the reader, rather, are most likely, taken to seeing him in, and Bethod immediately spits it back in his face that, like, no, 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 you have absolutely been the cause of all of my actions. I have no other choice than to try and feed my people. Sorry about that. Um, and and between that and every other time you hear about Logan's past, it because you spend so much time with him in the current day where he's trying to be a better person and he's doing his best to do good by everyone he meets, basically. Um, like every time something from his past comes up and you get to see, like, no, no, he is a piece of shit. Like, he is a horrible person who is trying to turn things around, but is like never going to outrun everything he's done. Um, I don't know. I think it's a very, very good use of that space.
Mhm.
There there is more I want to say on that, but I believe it would be a spoiler for further books. So at some point.
I love
Um,
Black Dow.
Black
I
Dad
also
was
love Black Town.
Yeah, that's all that needs to be said.
Oh, hang on.
Um,
I'll throw up. I'll throw up that awesome Black Dow meme you sent me on screen, Brandon.
I oh man, Dalen. While I am very excited for you to get into Mistborn, I also kind of want to push you to get further into the First Law books. The Heroes is a battle up in the north, and it has unquestionably it has my favorite Black Dow moments.
I I might change it to my mind and uh dip my toes back into the first law and put a hold on Mistborn series
Can
just
you
because
bel
I'm so invested in this universe.
Brandon, can you believe you've talked someone out of reading Mistborn? How upset are you?
I'm like a little mad at myself, but I don't know. It's like I've pushed if I'm like pushing them further into the First Law, it's like it's fine. I think I think that if I think it's kind of more natural actually to like let's like stick with the like Joe Abercrombie First Law and like read that series and enjoy it,
Yeah.
and then and it's like it's a very different tone, but switch to Brandon Sanderson's like Mistborn Cosmere stuff. Here we go. Yeah, I love that. Furious.
That's a good one.
Yeah, speaking to take a quick break from First Law discussion, I am, and to talk about Brandon Sanderson Cosmere, Wind and Truth, Book 5 of Stormlight Archive just came out, and I'm roughly like 15 to 20% of the way through that. Very good, melting my brain in like the best ways.
Yeah, it's I'm gonna go ahead and, if it's okay with you, can I send that picture, or can I put that picture of the book that you sent earlier in chat up on stream,
Oh yeah,
just
go
for
ahead.
comparison
Yeah.
of how fucking huge that thing is? Let's see.
Those Stormlight Archive books are large.
Where did you post that? I'm trying to find it now.
I think I think I sent it to the group DM First Law Enjoyers.
Oh,
Yeah,
there we are. Yes. Let me just do this. Add image. Because, like, those First
So
Law books are thick as shit.
like they're not small books.
They are not. And then seeing,
yeah.
I mean, the the picture is too big for the stream. That's a
Wow.
that's a big ass book.
You can sort of see my like folded in half receipt that I'm using as a bookmark sticking out at the top there.
So this picture, if I didn't know how big the Joe Abercrombie, the First Law trilogy books were, I would be like, oh yeah, those are normal sized books.
That's a pretty big book. Like
But yeah, but it's like, no, those books are huge. Those are probably the biggest books I've ever read.
What would y'all suggest be the next Abercrombie book that I read in the First Law universe?
Best served cold
Yeah.
is gonna be. So there's they are. It's most commonly referred to as the standalone trilogy because they were meant to be written as standalone novels set in the First Law world. But they are kind of like, and they would work that way, but they serve as a continuation to the story. In a sense, there's I know a few people who have referred to it as the Great Leveler trilogy because just the standalone trilogy has a bad ring to it. And like, I don't know how I feel about that name, but I think it might be better than standalone trilogy. But that would be the reading order from here would be Best Served Cold, The Heroes, Red Country, and then
Sharp
optionally you could hit well, I guess any point after The Heroes you could optionally hit Sharp Ends, which is a collection of short stories. And then there is the Age of Madness trilogy, which is kind of, that is considered to be a bit more mainline than um than
Then the standalone
the
trilogy.
standalones, because there is connection between Best Served Cold, The Heroes, and Red Country, but for the most part they happen in completely different settings with different POV characters. Whereas Age of Madness is much more like the first trilogy, where it is a continuous story across 3 books with POV characters that you follow across the same 3 books.
Okay.
I have an
I
important.
just put those on hold.
I have an important question for you, Dalen.
What's up?
Have you seen Kill Bill?
I have not.
Okay. I won't say that it's required viewing, but
I think it's. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I mean you go ahead.
I was gonna say absolutely not required, but
No.
it's what, it's 4 hours of cinema viewing. I think I'm absolutely down to the 3 of us having a Kill Bill watch party. We might do it in 2 parts because that is how the movies are done. But
The Best Served Cold is very strongly based off of Kill Bill.
well, I wouldn't say based off of. I'd
Not
say
based
inspired
off.
by.
Inspired by. Yeah, thank you.
Structurally.
Yeah.
It is a fucking gangster revenge story, and it is among my favorite of the 9 novels.
It got to be careful not to say anything even remotely spoilery here. But it has been some of the most entertaining storytelling I've ever witnessed.
Best Served Cold is
It's very good.
like, so I would, if I was to ranking the books would be a very hard task actually, but I will say what I am fairly confident in my rankings is the Age of Madness trilogy is all collectively tied for 1 through 3rd. And then Best Served Cold is a close 4th. And then The Heroes is 5th. And then with the rest of them, I'd have to do some like real deliberation. Actually, you know what? I think I can do this. I think I would put Last Argument of Kings behind The Heroes, and then Before They Are Hanged, Red Country, The Blade Itself.
Hell yeah.
And I think I want to say book 1 being the quote unquote worst one, that's still like a 7.5 or like an 8 out of 10 book. It's still, it's not heavy on the plot, but it really is just such a showcase of what an amazing character writer Joe Abercrombie is.
Oh, and for context about the standalone series, or the standalone trilogy rather, they are each written like as a story of a different genre. Like Brandon mentioned, the Best Served Cold is like a gangster revenge story. The Heroes is, I mean, I guess it's not that, The Heroes isn't that big of a departure from the First Law trilogy in that there's a large military conflict, but it's like entirely about that large military conflict. And as I've heard it explained, Red Country is Joe Abercrombie's take on a western, which I'm
I don't.
very excited to read. But
So I don't know if this was actually necessarily Joe Abercrombie's inspiration for the heroes, but it's kind of what I felt from it. There is a sort of unofficial coupling of World War II movies that were made by different studios, and they just came out at the same time and happened to tell both sides of the same story. And those movies are Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima.
mm,
And those two movies together, like if you were to kind of splice those scenes together into like one thing, I feel like that's very comparable to what The Heroes is like.
mhm.
It is like it is the most humanizing. It's fantastic. It is a lot of people. I think there was kind of a big like poll contest on Reddit recently where The Heroes was actually ended up being voted the fan favorite of the series. Um,
Really?
yes, it is. So I actually, on my first read through, I did not really like it as much. I probably would have put it like near last place. On my second read through, like for whatever reason, it resonated with me. It hit me a lot harder. Um, but it's like again, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself out of the first trilogy, but I think The Heroes is such an amazing, uh, like portrayal of war
Mhm.
and both the sense of honor and duty, as well as just the horror and scars it leaves. Um, the duality where it's like there's there's no such thing as a good war and we fight because we must, both being true. It's a good book.
You're telling me. You're telling me this Joe
Grim,
Abercrombie fellow wrote a good
grim
book?
dark. Grim dark, baby.
I
So that
really love how Abercrombie describes combat and war.
Mhm.
mhm.
It's so like visceral and just like ugh. Like there's themes in the first Law trilogy where I'm like it's just so the way he portrays it's it's so like intense. And it's like, oh god. Ugh.
Mhm.
There's one of the biggest gripes that I see about the first law, and it is I think, or people when people say that it just wasn't for them, like they totally. A common thing I see is people saying I see the merit behind it and I enjoyed the character writing, but the ending of every book's ending is disappointing. And I think that's a very valid point. And I I'll often use the word disappointing when I'm kind of describing the series to someone that I want to read it, because more or less because I want someone to know what they're getting into, because especially like people who maybe read a lot as a kid or a teenager and kind of fell out of it and haven't and are trying to get back into it as an adult. Um, you've likely read a lot of young adult fiction or stuff that, like, Lord of the Rings stuff that borders on um, a, a term that has kind of been coined that is the inverse to grimdark is noble bright. Um, which, like, that kind of those words describe, it's like, oh, it's the morally good hero will do the right thing and goodness will triumph. And, like, I sort of want people who are getting into the first law to be ready for the fact that, like, this is actually gonna shine a really ugly mirror to our world in a lot of ways, and it's going to show that no, good doesn't triumph. It's the pragmatic and the people with the most power.
Mm-hmm.
Power dynamics are such a big thing in this series. We talked about Glockta earlier, and again, it's not to justify his actions in any way, um, but he could tell himself that he can absolutely reason with himself that his hand is forced, which in a way it is, because the other option out will likely have him being killed.
Hmm.
But there's such a strong theme of, like, there's always a bigger bad, up until we get to essentially Baez and Khalul, which more or less everything that happens in this world is just kind of a big old dick swinging contest between these two old wizards.
Just like real life.
Kind of just like real life.
Yeah,
I don't know if we can say that. I didn't realize this podcast was gonna get woke.
I just thinking back on how I felt when I first started reading the Blade itself. I never, I, Baez being the big bad man behind the curtain was never in my predictions. I thought he was just gonna be a cool wizard.
Looking back at, like, in hindsight, seeing that Baez had, like, certainly tapped, at every point he's playing with way, way, way more information than, like, anyone else, of course. Um, but, like, even back when he first gets to Adua, he had presumably already tapped Glockta as, like, oh, this guy's gonna run the Union, because like, look at him, he's doing great. He came out of that torture cell like half a man and has withstood like a pretty solid position, um, while being, like, actively uh, not antagonized, but mismanaged by Salt, I guess, is the term I would use. Um, and, like, because originally at reading I was like, why is he going to the, like, why this random inquisitor of everyone in Adua, this random inquisitor who, like, can barely walk up the stairs, why is he accompanying them into the House of the Maker? And the answer is because I think Baez was able to,
Oh,
like, see his resiliency from the get-go.
I never clocked that. I never clocked that that Glockta did accompany them into the House of the Maker. Whoa. Okay.
I only did because I keep looking up at the screen and that very beautiful fan art of them entering the House of the Makers there, and it's like, oh yeah, shit, right, he was there, and like I believe there was some level of justification of like, well, he needs a witness, so you're gonna go, but like. But like the
Wow.
witness probably, if it could have been literally any witness, it probably shouldn't have been Glokta.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I also just want to say I like when they first get to Adjua and Baez is like, all right, let's go to the theater costume shop. We gotta get them to make a wizard uniform. No one else is gonna do it.
Yeah. I fu- that is a great scene. Just Lo- Logan's reaction to Adua is great.
Having like a panic attack at the crowd crush that is just
Just
everyday life in a city.
like the size of this city, the the way people act. There's the like there's the interaction where he's getting shown around by Jazal and he's looking at the fountain and he's like, how the fuck does that work? And
Yeah.
Jazal like doesn't fully understand it, but he kind of knows enough. He was like, oh well, it's underground pipes that it pumps the water up.
Pipes,
Um,
of course.
and yeah, and Logan is like, okay, yeah, pipes.
The fuck are
Um,
pipes?
yeah, and he's like, internally, he's like, what the fuck are pipes? But he's already so overwhelmed that he's like, I no, I don't have, I can't handle whatever the fuck pipes are. Like that sounds like some bullshit that is just too much for me.
I
I another reason I love that scene so much is the description it gives of Adua, where it's where this is mostly such a grounded fantasy world where the average town, you know, like in the north or in England, the average town has roughly like two like 200 to 300 people, um which is like you know, a few dozen families. um like they're really small interconnected communities. And so he comes to this place where the there's a saying in this town, in the shadow of the house of the maker.
mhm.
He goes to this place where it's such it's the city itself is like the largest, most grandest thing he has ever seen. Like the size of these buildings are nearly incomprehensible to him, despite the fact that he is literally seeing them. Um, and then up on this hill, there is like an amalgamation of 20 mansions that is like casting half of the city into a shadow. And it's just the biggest thing you've ever seen is a city with a population of like 10,000. Um, like the fact that I believe he talks about Ed's Carlion in the north like is a walled city, and that's like incredible to him. And then he just sees like Beijing essentially.
Right.
Um,
I really like there's a line in Best Served Cold where someone is asked like, "Oh, you've been to Adua. Have you stood in the shadow of the House of the Maker?" And his response is like, "It that thing is
It's the
so
whole
fucking
city.
big. The
Yeah.
whole city is in the shadow at some time of day, dude." And it's just like, I don't know. The Abercrombie is not only is he really really good at depicting like his character writing is of course phenomenal, but I think he does a very good job of explaining like environmental detail as well. Um,
Mhm. The
I
way
c-
he
Go ahead.
the the way he describes the ruins of the old empire,
Hmm.
like just he's really good at describing the size of like grand things where he's like there is there is a channel so large that Logan is looking at that and it was like and he's like, oh, it would it would take over a year to build a boat that could handle crossing this channel. But I can see the pillars of a bridge that used to stand here.
Hmm.
um, gives you like gives you a little bit of hint of like what the old empire was. It kind of makes me think to draw on a completely different fantasy source. The way they describe the Golden City in Dragon Age, which is like it literally exists in like a heavenly plane, like it's in a different place, but it's
Hmm.
just like this giant city that it kind of works as the like unknowing blueprint for what future society will like hope to discover and aspire to.
Does does Bias ever say explicitly his age in numbers?
I do not believe so,
I don't think so.
but he is
Just
proper ancient.
centuries old, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably like thousands.
Do we get a we don't get even like a time frame on the old empire, do we?
We might. Those are the kind of details I forget.
Hmm.
Let me.
Speaking of really tiny details, I think you mentioned that you could probably tweet Abercrombie and he would give you the answer. Um, but um,
Did I?
whenever,
Did I do that? I don't think I've. It
sorry?
might have been your coworker.
Oh no, this is a different thing. When when Pharaoh and Logan they're at the Maker's Forge, and they're fighting, or they're surrounded by flatheads, and Logan has one of his like his berserker moments. There is like there's a line that explains um, the like the shimmering glowing orange light off of the sword that Baez gave Logan. Um, and it's like it sticks out, at least when I was reading it, it stuck out to me as like a weird detail to include. I was like, is the sword influencing his like freak out? And the answer is like no. No, it's that's all him.
Yeah.
But but I think you suggested you if you were to tweet Abercrombie, you'd be like, "Oh, it's glowing because that's the place where it was made." Does that mean anything? No, just some cutting room
Um.
floor shit.
Yeah. I don't. I feel like I do kind of remember. I was saying that it feels like the kind of thing that like if you got him in a Q&A situation, because I don't know how active he is on Twitter these days
Hmm.
or like on social media in general. I know he was one of the kind of part of the reason he was able to get his series like up off the ground in the late 2000s was he was one of the early adopters to Twitter, with the handle at Lord Grimdark, which is a name he. It's a bit of a crown of thorns. that is it is absolutely a 2007 era Xbox Live gamer tag.
That's good.
But so I don't know like how active he is, but like it does seem like absolutely the kind of thing where I don't know if like necessarily Abercrombie in general, but just authors in general, or Abercrombie specifically, but authors in general, there'll be a lot of stuff where it's like, oh, I was just flavoring the text.
Mhm.
Sometimes it means something. Sometimes the curtains were just blue.
Yeah.
To use the English teacher meme example. Um, there are. I should scan over to make sure it's like spoiler free enough to send to you, but there's
Bless
one
you.
or two. I think there
Thank
might
you,
be
sir.
two. I know there's at least one AMA that Joe Abercrombie did on Reddit that is like absolutely fantastic. Um, and he's just a really funny guy. Which I'm one of the reasons I'm looking forward to the Devils. Is I've heard from a lot of people who've gotten advanced reader copies that it is quite a funny book.
That's good. That's very good news.
I really like when authors um like take authors that very clearly have the comedic chops, but that's not what they're focusing on. It's kind of fun when they take a book or two to like, actually, you know what? I'm writing a funny book here. Um, and it's just kind of seeing like they could, yeah, no, they could be like professional comedians if they wanted, probably. Like, or at least write for comedians.
Hmm.
Um, So I'm kind of wondering if the Devils might be a bit of that, because it seems to be like a gothic horror, but most of what I've seen from the marketing is it's like a kind of tongue in cheek, not taking itself super seriously. Like,
I'm just excited for
werewolf
vampires
armed
and
stuff.
werewolves.
Yeah.
I'm excited for him to
Dude.
redo that scene where Glocta's dreaming about being eaten, but this time it happens to someone.
The Vor dream.
What I want is like What We Do in the Shadows, but with like a bit more intensity.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Where it's like if we're gonna go on TV show, because I think you guys haven't seen the whole movie yet, have you? I've
I've not seen the
um
film.
I need to finish streaming that for you. Um, but we'll go on the TV short of like, if I hope we're getting Nandor the Relentless while he is like being the warlord.
While he
Like,
is still relentless.
that's yeah.
Oh, if I can just say, God, it's gonna kill me that I can't remember his name. Before West gets promoted, the gent with the indigestion. What's his name?
Was that Lord Marshal Burr?
Burr.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. Burr is such a phenomenally competent commander. Whenever he he walks into that room and has to explain to every single like dysfunctional, should not be at their post, like
Mhm.
noble who has just been put into this position, but he has the understanding that he needs to feed their egos so that they don't just piss and shit and cry. That he's like, okay, you're gonna do this very, very important job of watching this bridge, which is an important job, and he's giving it to the person who needs to have a job or they're gonna fuck everything up. He's great. I love it.
I think Lord Marshall Burr is one of the very few characters in the series where it's like maybe if we got a little bit more POV with him and stuff, there would have been a bit more like morally gray or like reasons to be like, oh, he's not such a great guy. But as far as what we see of him, he is a dude in a rough situation that does his job well.
Mm-hmm.
Like as well as could possibly be as expected of him.
I also just quite enjoyed the reveal that his indigestion, his prolonged indigestion that he had had for months, was not indigestion. It was like a stomach tumor or something. It was not just a funny little character moment. It was, uh-oh, this guy's ill.
I really love that Dogman has to piss. Like he gets the feeling that he has to piss before every fight. I think it's really oh, really a funny part.
Oh, well, we've been going at this for a little over 2 hours. Do y'all wanna wrap up and call it?
Um,
Or
before
if you
we
have more to
call it,
say.
there's one last thing I want to say. In the second book, when Column West frees frees Pike and the girl,
Mm-hmm.
the trajectory really felt like Column was about to get laid, and then he walks in on Dogman banging his would be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is the most like damn. Sorry, sorry,
I-
homie. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
At least, like, I was quite relieved that the man whose like fatal flaw is losing his temper, like anger issues, handled that pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like he just clearly stated is like I'm not gonna fucking pretend I'm not disappointed, but like, hey, like
The
you're your
dog
own
man?
person. Yeah, it's like really the fucking dog man.
I
I feel like there was kind of like the unspoken part where she's like, "You're fucking scary, man." Like,
I something I had not considered until you described him as a man whose fatal flaw is losing his temper. Um, it I like how immediately he and Logan kind of hit it off and bond, and it hadn't occurred to me, but they share in that fatal flaw and are both
that
deeply
yeah,
ashamed of
no,
it.
I hadn't actually even connected that. That's a really good point.
Yeah, it's like they are both trying to be good people, but sometimes just cannot help themselves but be wrathful shits.
Hmm.
Um, but also I think they also do connect over like war stories. I think right in that first meeting in Adjua. at the dinner party.
A bit, yeah. Just being soldiers.
Yeah.
There's.
Someone.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say someone we haven't mentioned as well is Tall Duru Thunderhead.
Right.
He's a good one. He deserves an honorable mention.
Three Trees as well.
Yes.
Do we ever find out where Three Trees got his name? Because I gotta know.
Don't think so.
No, I don't know.
He has the might of 3 trees. We also, shockingly, have said precious little about Nikimo Koska, but I guess he doesn't do a ton in the first 3 books.
He's in Before They Are Hanged a little bit, but like he doesn't do a whole lot other than kind of establish like I will serve you well if you pay me well. You see much more of him in Best Served Cold.
Is it in Before They Are Hanged that one of his like old colleagues is talking to him and is just like, you are not gonna find that you're not gonna find what you're looking for at the bottom of a bottle, and he's just like, Carol, and
I think it might be, yeah. Or like you'll never know if you don't check.
Black Dow's monologue on Tall Duru was very good. Where he spoke over his grave.
Good words.
Good words is yeah.
I quite like how like every time it's brought up, all of the Northmen kind of share in the same way that they process like death and grieving. It is surprisingly healthy. Most of the time.
Surprisingly healthy.
They have a very like I don't know. They seem pretty comfortable with death because in the North, war is like a pretty much constant, and the populations are thin enough that war affects everybody, not just the poor people. Because there's really not too much distinction between like the kings and the peasants in the North. They're very clearly kind of based on like Norse and Saxon culture. I really like the saying "back to the mud."
Back to the Mud's very good.
I think that's one of those things where it's like that. This is a saying that is from this book, but I could say in real life, someone is back to the mud, and someone would probably be like, "What the fuck?" But they would like know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a favorite like catchphrase or one-liner that gets tossed around?
Fucking Pinks is way up there.
Fucking Pinks is pretty good.
You have to be realistic.
You can never have too many knives.
Logan's got so many.
I absolutely love you can never have too many knives, specifically for Pharaoh's rebuttal of "What if you fall into a lake, idiot?"
That is a really good.
There's a saying.
Say one thing for Logan Nine Fingers. Say he
is X.
X, yeah.
That's good.
My favorite one is say one thing for Logan Nine Fingers. Say he's a dumb fucking cunt.
That's a good one. It's not a saying, but it's a quote in the last book. It's from Logan's point of view, and he says Logan knew better than to trust a bald man.
Maypilled. Surprise Guilty Gear reference in the first law discussion.
This is an absolute aside, but who would you want for it doesn't have to be Guilty Gear. We'll say a piece of media. I'm gonna go with Guilty Gear. Who would you want to be your Guilty Gear guest character for First Law? Because I think
Oh, like, sorry, do you mean First Law character playable in Guilty Gear, or do you
Yes.
mean Guilty Gear character appearing in the First Law world?
First Law character playable in your or existing in your selected piece of media. I think Glokta with his practicals as like assist moves would be hardcore as hell.
Oh, that would be cool.
Oh, actually no, he'd have to be in like
So,
Mortal Kombat. He'd go hard in Mortal Kombat.
So my actual answer is a character that's outside of the original trilogy. So I'll exclude that one for now. For now, I will just say Gorst.
Gorst is good.
Or actually, you know what? I feel like Vitari could do Rushdown better, and I like Rushdowns.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about Vitari. I really
True.
like her. There's so many great characters in this series.
There's a lot.
Oh.
I wouldn't mind. I don't know what game. I guess Guilty Gear, but I imagine maybe like a third person survival game. I like Black Dow's axe and short sword combo in his fight with Logan at the end. I think that seems like a fun combo.
I don't like Soul Calibur, but Soul Calibur seems like the series to drop a First Law character in.
I think not that it's a
Just because it's like weapon combat based.
I think if you were gonna go for like weapon appreciation, I think what's it called? For Honor would be great for like literally any weapon user in First Law.
I have not played For Honor. So.
It's
that what's that one new game? Is it like Deadly Quarter or something like that?
Oh, I've definitely heard that name.
That it looks pretty cool. That's like it's like a fencing game. I guess you could kind of call it like a more graphically advanced Nidhogg a bit.
Logan.
You mean Nidhogg too?
Logan.
No. What do you mean? What do you mean? There's no such thing.
Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, actually, yeah, no, it is Nidhogg too.
Logan would be fun to play as with his berserk quality.
Mm-hmm. He'd have an install super where he just gets super pissed. Oh, I also want to say Stephen Pacey does such a good job in the circle whenever Logan is finally feeling his blood boil, and he just sits up and goes, "Yes, yes."
Yeah. Oh, one moment, I gotta take a phone call real quick.
That's quite all right.
I think. Do you think? I think Tall Duer's murder was the straw that broke the camel's back for Black Dow. I think.
Oh, absolutely. I think I don't know. I'll be interested to read again at some point in the distant future, surely. Black Dow, I feel like will probably have had what's the wording? I don't think he was ever like overtly against Logan necessarily, but I like until until he was. Um, but I feel like on reread I get the inkling that I'll have noticed more resistance to Logan's leadership.
I agree. I just want to say on VOD that Black Dow is one of the best, if not the best, non-POV character.
Hell yeah. You are gonna like those future books.
I am back. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Welcome back.
Oh, I also want to say I'm very disappointed that when you asked what book was next, I checked over my shoulder to see if I still had it, but I've already returned my copy of Best Served Cold. I couldn't just walk into your room and slam it on your desk. I do have Red Country, but then you might have read Red Country first, and that's probably not right.
Like, it wouldn't be too bad.
We have any further thoughts?
Not really. I'm thinking Dogman. Dogman's pretty cool. He's a pretty cool guy.
I love the Dogman.
Dogman is like, he is actually one of the very few characters that I like. I don't really have anything bad to say about the Dogman. Like,
I think he's just an all-around good guy.
He's
one of the few characters that are just.
he makes hard decisions, but I don't think he ever really makes like a wrong decision.
I think it is telling that the Dogman was such a good character that he was able to overcome my immense disappointment that he was not a Dogman.
That he was not a literal Dogman.
I was picturing like a bipedal wolf guy in their crew, and I was like, "Oh, that's great! I can't wait to meet him."
That is a really common disappointment that people have when picking up the series, to find out that the Dogman is like, oh wait, no, that's his name. That's just what they call him.
Well, if y'all are satisfied, I think we might do a sign off.
Yeah, I think that was a good talk.
It was a good talk.
It was a good talk.
Can't wait for the next one. Thank y'all so much for joining in on this. To all of our lovely viewer, thank you for hanging out. Yeah, have a lovely night, everybody.
Good
stay
night.
tuned for this brief video presentation.
Have a great evening.
Have you ever seen anything like this? Ugh. How interesting. Just look at that. That's odd. I couldn't even venture a guess.